There are so many matchups in the game now that there are some that I can't recall seeing. I don't know. You guys tell me. Have I casted Khorne versus Vampire Coast on this channel yet? Hard to say, but I do sort of see a lot of the Monogods matchups as a sidestep to a degree of, like, the Warriors of Chaos, for example, especially now with Champions Chaos released, but there are some important differences, so let's check some considerations, and I'll talk you through my build here as I start to rain some Queen Bess fire on poor Coop's Hellforge host here. He knew this was a risky pick to bring, but he brought it anyway, and I appreciate that. Let's see how they do here, despite Queen Bess raining death on them currently. We've also got a front line of Marauders, 5 Marauders here, and Minotaurs, which I didn't expect, which I probably should have, to be honest. They're one of Khorne's strongest aspects right now, and interesting against the Vampire Coast as well, because they will crump a lot of targets very heavily. He's got some Furies as well out to the side. Herald of Khorne leading the way on his Khorne motorcycle there. And we've also got some Warhounds out to the side here. For myself, I've gone full dark side with Count Noctilus. Yeah, on foot there, we've got some bats on this side, some more bats on this side for 4 in total, 4 animated hulks, 4 bombers, 4 deckhands with 1 polearm, and the Lamprey's Revenge, and of course, Queen Bess raining down some fire already. So thinking through this matchup, obviously Sirens are very vulnerable to all of Khorne's magic damage with their demonic units, so they're out already. I would imagine that Depth Guard probably trade very poorly. I don't know that I've tested them necessarily. Maybe I have against Exalted Bloodletters, or just Bloodletters in general. Seems like a terrible trade. Even Minotaurs just seems like it's not great. The Minotaurs for Khorne also have a bit more armor, which will help against stuff like pistols. A little bit more weapon strength initially as well, but I figured the animated hulks could trade okay with, you know, Khorne infantry. Again, I didn't really expect the Minotaurs explicitly, but bats, of course, are going to trade very cost-effective. They're probably individually the best counter unit for Furies, in my opinion. Especially here where, like, the bats and dogs can make an attack. They're going to go after the high-value target of Queen Bess initially, which then allows my bats to counteract and charge in there. Bombs going off in the front line as well, doing lots of damage to those Marauders. And the Minotaurs dishing out heavy damage, but taking some damage as well. Lamprey's Revenge are going to run in here. And with healing, their own self-healing, and with active healing from Noctilus, they should be able to hold out okay. Also going to use a little bit of, what is it? Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma, even though it's not super efficient to be casting on these Khorne Minotaurs, rather, with their magic resistance and lower model count. It's still just to kind of slow them down, control their movements, and deal a tiny bit of DPS to them. And Warhounds, of course, one of the biggest issues perennially in Chaos versus Undead matchups is that Warhound's terrible leadership leaves them very vulnerable to bats and direwolves, scurvy dogs in this matchup, obviously. But the fact that their leadership is so terrible means the basic fear from these units will rout them quite easily. But frontline engagement, the animated hulks are helping out. Them in combination with the zombies is definitely a lot to deal with. The zombies are going to get absolutely pummeled, no question. But here we see that some of the animated hulks are also just getting crushed by the Minotaurs, and it's kind of to be expected. Acceptable losses and all that. I've got a few more waves throw in here, especially the zombie halberds in the late game. But let's check in here with the Hellforge host and see, oh yes, they're still alive. Of course, high leadership demons, basically unbreakable. They're going to come in here and already start to carve up some pretty good value, 42 kills. And I've got to be very careful. I kind of just YOLO Noctilus in here a little bit, and if you were to get surrounded by the Hellforge host and get beaten down, you could take an alarming amount of damage very quickly. But smart here by Koops to kind of peel these Minotaurs out of that engagement just to try and finish off the grenades. He initially had done a pretty good job of doing damage to my grenade mobs, but you can see I've managed to pull a lot of them back, screening with the animated hulks and my remaining Lamprey's Revenge and whatnot, but having a hard time protecting everything, as a lot of units are starting to crumble for me. Zombies, though, with grenades, of course, the bombers, just so powerful. Against any unarmored infantry especially, they'll just do an insane amount of damage, but see the Relentless Rage here. Locust Wrath also gets popped, so a nice melee attack boost for all these Khorne units. Not to mention the Herald of Khorne also getting his passive, of course. Multiple passives that increased melee attack. So those Hellforge hosts are juiced up to 113 melee attack with that active. Of course, flaming attacks also boost their damage against the Lamprey's Revenge, so even though they're not really a halberd unit, they're still going to be pushing out a lot of damage. But of course, undead leadership crumbling is just ridiculous, and they will basically take no damage from that. And although they'll take damage from the Khorne units themselves, it still turns into an attrition game that Khorne just can't handle with its build construction, unfortunately. A little bit too much damage in some key areas. But I definitely liked Coop's idea of the Minotaurs here. My build, I would say, I don't know if this is necessarily tournament ready. I haven't really played much competitive land battles lately, I'll admit. But it seems on paper to be pretty solid. I mean, certainly may have some weaknesses. I will say that the Hellforge hosts, as we'll see, still managed to get a very good amount of value despite being focused by Queen Bess basically the whole time. So that's pretty interesting to me. Queen Bess didn't actually end up paying for herself, so although it might seem very impactful, maybe psychologically for Koops, he felt like he kind of got baited into it there a little bit, maybe with his Furies. You could keep the Hellforge hosts, or alternately, you could probably cut them. And then for Koops, since he's, you know, my patron also, just offer this advice publicly to you guys, I would probably attack first the bats in the sky with your Furies so you can get cleaner engagements. Like, obviously, some builds are going to be different. All builds slightly different, most likely. But in this particular build with the Vampire Coast here, I didn't have any pistols or anything else that could really shoot up into the sky. So had the Furies chosen to chase my Fellbats, it would have been, you know, me making a decision. Do I want to spend my micro trying to help these 300 cost bats survive, or do I just sacrifice them? Then when they're dead, you have basically free reign to then move in on Queen Bess or try and snipe out some of the bombers with the Furies. So maybe, again, taking one additional Fury. If you were to cut Hellforge host, take an additional Fury, and then let's actually check the cost here in just a minute. I'll look over my values real quick, because I know some of you guys like to see those. Honestly, for me, what carried a lot of the value is the Lamprey's Revenge, grinding it out in melee. Managed to get quite a bit back, and then, of course, Animated Hulks trading very cost-effective, as do some of the bombers, not all of them, but Halberd surviving in the late game. And, yeah, interesting. I mean, the Minotaurs did a decent amount of damage. One of them ends up just about paying for itself. Yeah, but anyway, let's see here. If you were to cut the Hellforge host, although I do still like the pick, just as insurance, again, against if someone were to bring Furies, Sirens. Anyway, let's see here. So, I come over Khorne, and let's look at the Hellforge host. So, 1,500. For 1,500, you could get, you know, something like, let's see here, maybe one Fury, couple extra Warhounds, and although I was poo-pooing on the Warhounds' leadership, it's definitely not amazing. Yeah, you know, strength in numbers. If you have enough numbers and you just keep them in reserve until the bats are routed, and then kind of use them as mobile attack units to go after bombers, and even just disrupt them momentarily, just play them a little bit back initially, could be good. Or alternately, you could also take some Fleshhounds. I mean, Fleshhounds are going to be vulnerable to bombs to a degree as well, but their physical resistance, the fact that they're demonic, so they're, you know, unbreakable until their leadership gets broken, and they start to take a lot of damage. But functionally, you know, their leadership's pretty good, so you're not going to have too many issues there. 20% physical resistance, again, kind of helps defend against that, and just that high weapon strength and charge means they'll get in and do a lot of damage to the bombers. So yeah, this is, you know, you could alternately take either of those combinations, I guess. Yeah, a little bit of points left over in this one. But anyway, that's it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.